Welcome to Ventura in 2026, where every day is Monday. All kidding aside, this is an important market update. It's the first annual update. We're going to go through all the data for the annualized data for the whole year of 2025. Also, what happened in December was a complete flip of what we saw in January and February of last year. This annualized data is going to be so important. If you are looking to buy, if you are looking to sell, if you're looking to move up or move down, if you're renting, if you have anything real estate related, this market data is going to be so transparent and so packed with information that you, like me, are going to know exactly what's going to happen this year in 2026. We're going to get into it right now. But what's even more important is this right here. This is such a big deal because I'm teamed up right now with a number of YouTubers all the way from Canada to the East Coast. I'm just going to reference the link below. We're talking Atlanta. We're talking Canada, Ontario, Toronto, all of these areas. I'm going to make that note if you want to link below. There they are. But let's get right into this heavy data. So let's start out. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited because I love data because I'm really a good read on people, emotion, that sort of thing. That's my strong suit. But I do like numbers. I think a lot of people overlook the data, but the real seasoned real estate people, property owners, if people are second-time home buyers or fourth or fifth-time home buyers or vacation or second home buyers, they love the data too. They want to know the analytics with the property specific. They want to know the neighborhood. They want to know the area. They want to know what's going on. And that's what I love about this. So we're going to get right into it. So per Ventura, and this is really great analytics for the whole area, but per Ventura, what we saw about a year ago is we saw inventory was at its lowest point early on in January, February. That was about 45 to 55. Now we're at 134 today, but we actually came off the 210 mark, which was the peak last year, which it stayed about just above 200, around 200 for 4 or 5 months. It got there real quick in March and April. And the reason why this inventory is important because there's the two things that were keeping prices up was the low interest rate and the low inventory. So when they raised the interest rate and inventory went down, prices went up. It was kind of an obvious inverse reaction. But what are we seeing now? We are seeing the prices come down and interest rates come down. And why is that? Well, we've got some really hard costs that are hard reality of home ownership. The truth is here in Ventura, we have so many older homes that maybe they haven't been neglected, but if they haven't been updated and well maintained, buyers are keen to it. They want the data on that. They want to know how much does it cost. So the hard costs of home ownership, like doing upgrades, updates, or just getting something fixed, have gone up. Insurance has gone up. The new Ventura City Water, they're coming out with rate increases, and this has been in the works for the last 2 or 3 years. One of the previous mayors had set aside the solution was to have an impact on the residents, was to essentially resulted in raising water rates. We're seeing the same thing with electrical. A lot of the rules that are going on in California, they're pushing for the solar. Is that helping anyone? Well, it's a good idea, but when you buy solar, you have to pay for your solar system, which has an end date itself, battery shelf life, and then you have to pay for the electricity also. They were subsidized to incentivize people for a while, but now you've got to pay like double or triple, so the incentive isn't really there. And it's not necessarily helping. What we're actually finding is that because there is more electricity, people are just using more. So we've seen rates go up in all of these areas. Now, fuel gas for cars is really starting to go up. There we go again. The governor decided to have these great ideas of let's be the highest gas in the nation. So the cost of living with all of these things compounded is more expensive here in California. They call it a lifestyle tax. Like we have the lifestyle, we have the beaches, we have the sun, we have the year round. I mean, we had some pretty heavy rains here just recently, and it was like hunker down, and it's real because you've got potential mudslides, car accidents, flooding, things like that, mudslides. You've got that, that issue. However, but once we get out of the woods, so to speak, with the weather, it gets sunny again. It gets really nice. You're not hunkered down in ice, snow, and sleet and hail for like 3 to 4 months at a time. So that's what we call a lifestyle tax here in California. It's the cost of everything really being up. But that big inflection, I want you guys to be aware of it, is the inventory is lower, which is good for sellers for now. But the big difference that we saw last year is we saw the luxury market, which I'm going to say starts at 2 million. You can start at 2. Really, it's like 3.5 is kind of our luxury market, between there and 5. Post 5, that's a different market. That's like the uber luxury. And we're seeing a lot of even your 25 million, up owners kind of buying second homes in the 5 million range. Not everybody's buying properties at that price, but what matters is for luxury buyers is that if you don't have you want to see the ratio of move up buyers getting that luxury or entry luxury price point. So I like to say 2 is usually someone who's near retirement, a lot of wealth, mostly cash or all cash on purchases in the 2 million range, kind of the entry to luxury, very satisfactory home. Usually 2 million homes going to come with everything you can want: big walk-in closet, double sinks, everything's working. There's not fix-ups unless it's, a fixer property like right on the beach in a 5M neighborhood, coastal, or, the best area is hillside, but pretty much like 2 to 5 million for Ventura. Going up to Ojai, 5 to 15, the super luxury market. But let's get into what we're seeing for luxury sellers. So sellers, ears up on this one. For sellers, last year, the biggest availability and active, over 2 million, especially over 3, was huge. Right now, it's the thinnest. That's the part of the market that went down as far as active sales. Now, my theory on this is that we had a lot of people go to sell, try to sell for like 2 years. They've pulled out. They're going to be on as canceled, expired, on hold, or withdrawn. Now, this data, if we have those sellers, and even a fraction of those sellers, half of those sellers, most of those sellers come back in the spring with the new sellers of 2026, and you're a luxury seller, if you're at 2 million, 3 million, or you want to be at 4 or 5 million, and all of a sudden you go on in April or May, you're going to competing with all the ones from 24, 25 that didn't sell and the new ones from 2026. You got to be a little quicker. You got to call me or call your agent, call your person, and let's get going. Because I know a lot of people might be in prep and like want to get everything perfect. I'm like, okay, you can get everything perfect and be on with a selection of 20 or 30 comparable properties, which is likely going to happen in the luxury market. We saw the biggest pullback in that space. The secure space, if you live in a neighborhood or you're eyeballing property between 800 and 1.2, that was the most solid median price point and range. And it's a couple different, buying areas. We really see like people shopping between 8 and 9, or people shopping between 9 and $1 million up to $1 million. And then we see people shopping, usually if they're $1 million, they're going to be shopping between 1.2. And a few people, much, much thinner once you get to 1.3 and 1.4. And that's like your median for Ventura County. We saw that in Camarillo. We saw that in Moncton. We saw that in Ventura. We even saw a pretty good consistency with those same numbers and spreads in Ojai, where you tend to have your higher end buyers. But at the end of the day, most of the people transacting, most of this data is built on everyday people that are working, 9 to 5s, careers, professionals, and that's that median data. Now, under the hood, let's go down a level because, like I said, we've got the lava lamp, is what I like to say. Maybe I'll get a lava lamp up here. But what happens is when it bubbles up, that luxury market gets going and it pulls those medians up, and then the medians pull up the price point underneath, the 4, 5, and 6, the condos. But what we saw happen was once it releases and it falls, we're seeing luxury give up a bunch right now. Now, we saw luxury give up in 24 and 25, was hanging on to some high prices, but they're giving up. Sometimes a $3 million list was actually 2.5. Something at 2 and 8 was maybe 2.2. We're seeing a big chunk, 20, 25% for people that want to exit and get things done. because you don't have that thin little market where there's only a couple properties to sell, and those heavy pocketed cash buyers, they have a big selection right now. And while there's a lot of people still wanting to move and wanting to get that deal, if they have to sell to repurchase to get into the luxury, that kind of middle to going up, you have less people selling to repurchase in the luxury than you do luxury, baby boom silent generation usually, wanting to sell to move down. So those people are going to pay. They're not getting a good enough interest rate if they're lending and they're downsizing. So there's a lot of people downsizing because of maintenance, size of the property, wanting the single level. They have the 2-story. We're seeing a lot of migration in that, and it's mostly local. It's mostly local in Ventura. We're getting a little bit of this, Palisades area, and then more than Palisades is more of the Malibu. So it's Malibu and Palisades are not necessarily one and the same. Palisades was tending to go towards Santa Barbara. Ventura's almost is what I'm seeing right now with people that I know, lifestyles, and the Oxnard beaches, the Silver Strand beaches, the surf beaches. If you guys don't know, Silver Strand is a very comparable wave to Zuma Beach. And then off Amalfi Street and Oxnard Shores, very comparable wave. You'll have the same characters kind of going around the same place as you'd have people going to golf courses you do in the surf community. So Malibu in a way is kind of like starting to encompass and not encroach, and not bad, not a local thing. We all surf each other's beaches. Let's keep that real. But if you live at Silver Strand Beach, like, it is something else. People aren't really going to make that mission to go down there and surf as much, even though it's crowded days, but they get those empty days. Malibu's they're kind of coming in. They're kind of here. They're buying places West End, Ventura. They're buying Oxnard beaches. They're buying golf course communities, even up to Ojai. Ojai, people love those point breaks. So you'll have a lot of, Malibu surf scene people wanting to be near, Paitas, Little Rincon and Rincon, to have that kind of point break. Same flavor and feel as a lot of those Malibu points. So we're seeing some integration there. But to get back on topic and get with the data in that low end, let's talk about the 600s. That was kind of a ceiling. We see 31 actives, 11 under contract, and 15 closed. That's a pretty good absorption. You add 11 and 15, you're not far off from 31. So we see an absorption going there. And then the 6 to 700 range, we've got 11 properties active, 4 and 6, so 4 plus 6, 10. It's right there near 11. So we're seeing a consistent absorption. What we don't like to see as sellers is we don't want to see high activity, low number of escrow, low number of close, because what that's showing us is that the properties aren't being absorbed, sellers aren't exiting in those price points. The more specific data, when you're trying to look at neighborhoods and what those neighborhoods are selling for, that's all fine and dandy, but if you don't know how many buyers are out there, you don't know what competing neighborhoods. Sometimes we get too microscopic and we're looking at just a neighborhood, but you really want to see who you're competing against. Right now, we're seeing people really stretch out. What we saw during pandemic when things were thin is we saw people start stretching out because there wasn't enough inventory. Like, let's say they wanted, downtown Ojai. Well, if they couldn't get that cute little, $1 million 1.2, they might look at Midtown Ventura. They want that walkable feel. Right now, I'm noticing people actually like Santa Paula. If we're talking about like heat maps, Santa Paula is like the new gold in all levels for ranch style properties. You're really getting your discounts. You're closer. You can go right into Ojai from Santa Paula. You can take Ojai Santa Paula Road and go right past Macaulay's and you're in it. But you're actually close to LA. So for a lot of those buyers that need to be close to LA for work or something, they're really looking at Santa Paula. And then for starter homes versus Oxnard, because Oxnard's just could be so busy and bustling, Santa Paula has a small town feel. So even the Spanish style bungalows, people are going after those, getting about 10 or 15% less than what they would in Ventura or Oxnard. So Santa Paula is a hot little ticket right now. So let's check out the range. So then when you get to 8 to 900,000, it's 18, 15, 11. That's good absorption. Higher on the actives, I think that was one of the strongest that we saw. And then in 9 to 1 million, 17, 8, and 9. So yeah, so 8 to 900 is still the strongest. That's the most competitive price point. You've got the most number of buyers in that pool. And then we can tell by the close of the absorptions. And then the 1 to 1, 2, 13, 7, and 5. So you start to see just a little bit of an inflection there. And then once you get to 1, 2, and 1, 4, and this was a really high one this time around, was 12 actives, 2 in escrow, and 5 closed. That was actually a pretty good number for that price range. And it's a closeout month in December. So you see a lot of you'll see a lot of people kind of fulfilling and making that purchase, or sellers getting that sale done. So in all price point, there's a big motivation. I think in January, we might see a little bit of less, but year over year, 2026, I think we're going to see more volume. And I had kind of said why is because you have a lot of those sellers that are at unrealistic prices. They're going to look at these closings. They're going to adjust. They're going to come to market at the market price that they should be. And then they're going to go from there. Let's get right into the 1, 4 to 1, 8. We actually had 10 actives, 3. This was the one that really surprised me. The 3 in escrow and the 3 closed. And that's probably your inflection point. Now, right when you get to the 1.8 to 2 million, 7 actives, 0 escrow, 0 closed for that month. 2.2 to 2.4, 9 actives, 1 escrow, 0 closed. We've got the only thing that closed out of all the next groups was 1 property from 3 to 3.5 million, 2 in escrow at 2.5 to 3, and then 2 in escrow from 3 to 3.5. So you really only have 5 transactions, 5 or 6 transactions going into escrow above $2 million. So it's a thin amount, but it's the smallest amount of actives that they've had in that range, especially when you get to $3 million. So if you're a luxury seller and you're looking to sell, I would hit the market now, because you're only going to have a few sales a month, if that, above 3 million. That if you wait, and there's at 3 million, there's 2 properties on. At 3.5, there's 5. There's 1 above 4 million. If you wait till April or May, that's going to double, triple, or quadruple in your competition. And if you really need to exit and you want to exit, no, you're going to be coughing up a bunch. So if you're prepped at all and ready to go, or you need someone that can help you prep, that is what I do. We get properties looking good, looking beautiful. If it's staging, if it's updating, getting it done quick inside of 30 days. HD photos, that's where you need to be if you're a seller. And even if you're not at the 3 million mark, if you are at the 1 million mark, if you're at 500,000, it's the same process. Sometimes the means are a little different, but we work with what we can do to get the property looking its best and get it on the market. And then we price accordingly. Be priced within your range, not of what you want, but what the data actually says. So this is showing us the buyer activity. When you call me, we're going to get in and we're going to look at that. Well, I like to do a micro one where we're going to look at just your neighborhood, and then we're going to look for like around that subdivision and go wider. A little bit of a macro, a little bit of a macro. So we'll go just the neighborhood, like for like, then the larger subdivision area, then the whole city. Okay, because a lot of times east versus west, you won't necessarily see some competition, but you might, and you want to see what's selling. And then city to city might be the same case. A lot of times buyers that are looking for Ventura, Camarillo, or Ojai, they're going to be attracted to one. They're usually going to settle in on one. And if someone's open to Oxnard, Ventura, Camarillo, and it's all about price, they're probably going to Oxnard. You get a lot more for your dollar, and especially if you get in the good neighborhoods of Oxnard. I'm blown away at what you can get in Oxnard, at what some of the deals that we have. We got one coming up on Dunes, these golf course communities. You're getting like at $1 million or sometimes under $1 million. It's like, you kidding me? People are almost paying that on the West End for properties that still need $200K in work. So if you're curious at all about which city is going to be right for you, they all have something different to offer. And we get into all that stuff. So this one's going a little bit longer, but that's pretty much our data. And then the conclusion is from this is that we saw a big flip from what we were seeing last year as far as where the actives were. So if you're in that potentially even $400,000 range, which we really haven't seen a lot, but if you're there and you're trying to put it together, here's the good news for you as a buyer. 31 properties under 600, that's a big number for, especially for now for winter. I think that number's going up to 50 by the time we get to March or April. And I think we're going to see the motivated sellers drop their price. We're not going to see these fixie properties that need a bunch of work, condos that need a bunch of stuff, and people are getting $5.25, $5.50. No, those are going to go into the fours. Those are going to go down to $4.75 or $4.50. And with the rate dropping incrementally, it'll be just the right time to come in and buy. But the big thing that people who are first-time home buyers, VA buyers, if you're not coming from generational wealth, you have to understand there is nothing wrong with getting in the door and getting started. Who you're up against is all cash buyers, and they have all this equity, and because they own them free and clear, they're not paying interest. So these other properties that they own are just generating more and more money. Like, how do they have this money? That's how they have the money, because they have the wealth. Wealth grows money, and you're competing against that. Okay, so when you have these moments where you see prices come down and rates come down and opportunities to get into that game and not be the renter anymore, you do it and you suck it up and you do it. And if it's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, or 10 years, usually somewhere between 5 and 10 years, that's when you're able to level up. You have a little bit of inflation and you grow with it and you pay down some debt with it. And then that what you started with, that down payment, turns into, what we call a chip. Now you've got an equity chip or 2 or 3, and you can put 200 or 300 into something else, and you can move up and you can build your wealth. That is the dream. That's what you want to do. And it's still possible here in California. And it's all about just kind of starting out with the right place, and it's within range. And last but not least, you guys, don't do this by yourself. You don't have to call me per se. You can call someone from my office. You can call someone else on YouTube. Call someone else that you feel comfortable with. But the biggest problem today that I see is people trying to do it themselves, trying to do it with chat, trying to do it with AI, and they're all over the place because they're trying to feed themselves the information. Like, the information's it's always been out there. It's out there for everybody, but it's understanding the steps in an order that makes it happen. So that you know when to have leverage, when to write this offer, how to negotiate, and you're doing it in an order that's effective, that gets a response and makes it happen. I'm seeing with this last year, I'm seeing more people try to do it on their own and do things out of order and just end up kind of tripping over their feet. The buyers always paid for the commission. They always did. They always write that money, and that money can be dispersed. You, the buyer, decides. Even if you're a seller and repurchaser, sellers are in control to a degree. They're in control of the asset. But once the terms are negotiated, the buyer's the one doing the action. They're the one bringing the money. They're a big decision maker too. And I'm great to see that we're in an environment that's more even keel, ready to make that deal. We've all got to come up with a compromise on one side to make the deal happen. And let's do it for each other. All right, thanks so much for watching.